Chapter 1: The Nature of Worry and the Power of Imagination. Let me tell you something I've learned after a few decades on this wild ride we call life. Most of the time, the bear that's chasing us ain't real. Seneca, one of the old Roman boys I like to keep on my bookshelf, put it plainly: we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. Ain't that the truth? You see, anxiety has this way of renting out a room in our heads and throwing a wild party with every possible worst-case scenario. You're sitting there, sipping coffee, sun's out, you're breathing just fine, and yet your mind is 5 steps ahead, already worrying about a meeting tomorrow, what your ex might say next week, or how the whole damn economy's gonna collapse by next month. We live in the future, not the real one, the one we invent. And that's the core of the problem. You know, the Stoics weren't just a bunch of grumpy guys in togas. They were fighters of the mind. And they knew the real war wasn't out there, it was in here, inside, between our ears. If you were distressed by anything external, Marcus Aurelius said, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment. That's the key. It's not what's happening to you, it's how you see it. Your perception is the steering wheel. And most folks, they hand the keys over to fear. Now, let me ask you something. When you're anxious, what exactly are you anxious about? Epictetus, another one of my go-to mental sparring partners, posed it beautifully. When I see an anxious person, I ask myself, what do they want? For if a person wasn't wanting something outside of their own control, why would they be stricken by anxiety? You hear that? Most of our anxiety is tied up in wanting something we can't guarantee. Approval, certainty, control, safety. But life don't play by those rules. Let's break this down real simple. Anxiety is imagination gone wild. It's you playing a horror movie in your head that hasn't even been made yet. You're the writer, director, and audience all in one. And still, you keep scaring yourself half to death. And this stuff is exhausting. Seneca, again, God bless that man, warned about this too. It's ruinous for the soul to be anxious about the future and miserable in advance of misery. For such a soul will never be at rest. We try so hard to predict the pain, we forget to live the moment that's right here, in front of us. It's like sitting on a sunny porch, but keeping an umbrella open just in case it rains. You miss the breeze, the birds, the whole damn point. So what do? Well, we do what Marcus did. Today I escaped anxiety. Or no, I discarded it because it was within me, in my own perceptions, not outside. We realize that anxiety isn't a monster out in the woods. It's a shadow cast by our own flashlight. We put down the flashlight, or at least point it in a different direction, and that shadow, it disappears. Look, I've had my share of sleepless nights, bills, sick loved ones, unknowns. But I'll tell you what gave me peace. Understanding the difference between what's mine to carry and what's not. That's the real muscle Stoicism helps you build. Discernment. Epictetus said it best. The chief task in life is simply this: to identify and separate matters so that I can say clearly to myself which are externals, not under my control, and which have to do with the choices I actually control. That's it. That's the game. That's the rule book. What do I control? My choices, my mindset, my focus. What don't I control? Everything else. When you can separate those two buckets, yours and not yours, something amazing happens. Your anxiety shrinks. So next time your chest tightens, your heart races, and your brain's spinning up a dozen awful outcomes, stop. Breathe. Ask, is this real, or is this just my imagination talking? And 9 times out of 10, it's just smoke, not fire. Because as Marcus said, don't try to picture everything bad that could possibly happen. Stick with the situation at hand and ask, why is this so unbearable? Why can't I endure it? You'll be embarrassed to answer. You'll realize you can endure it. You already are. You've survived everything life's thrown at you up to now. Why would tomorrow be any different?
Chapter 2. Why we suffer from what doesn't exist. You ever sit there, wide awake at 2 a.m., worrying about something that hasn't even happened yet? Yeah, me too. There's a quote from Seneca that hits like a ton of bricks. For truth has its own definite boundaries, but that which arises from uncertainty is delivered over to guesswork and the irresponsible license of a frightened mind. In other words, facts are solid. But fear? Fear is a shapeshifter, and it thrives in fog. See, life's kind of like standing at the foot of a mountain during a snowstorm. Those little flakes, that's the future. You don't know how they'll land, how big the storm's going to get, or if it'll even stick. But we sit there trying to predict each flake's direction, and that's where the suffering begins. Not in the moment, but in the guessing. Think back to any big stressor you've faced. A job interview, a medical test, hell, even a difficult conversation you've been putting off. What caused more pain? The actual event or the endless worrying in your head before it happened? I'll bet you the worry did more damage than reality ever could. You see, the exam doesn't hurt. The idea of failing the exam, that's what eats you alive. The breakup doesn't destroy you. It's imagining what life will be like alone forever that rips you up. Seneca wasn't just spouting poetry. He understood the real enemy. Your mind on a runaway loop, spinning stories faster than a politician at a press conference. And the worst part? Most of those stories never come true. Let me put it this way. Life hits hard sometimes, yeah? But more often than not, we throw punches at shadows. We suffer from our own projections, not the present moment. Epictetus said it clearly. Man is not worried by real problems so much as by his imagined anxieties about real problems. We build cathedrals of dread out of a single stone of uncertainty. We take a harmless what if and turn it into a full-blown Greek tragedy, with ourselves cast as the doomed hero. You ever noticed how when the actual event finally arrives, it's never as bad as we feared? Why? Because reality has limits. The mind doesn't. Reality is a rude neighbor, but imagination is a horror movie director with no budget cap. Now, don't get me wrong, a little worry, that's natural. It's the brain trying to keep us alive. But when it runs unchecked, when it becomes our default setting, it turns life into a waiting room for disasters that never show up. And here's the kicker. Every moment you spend worrying about tomorrow is a moment you lose from today. As Seneca warned, it's ruinous for the soul to be anxious about the future and miserable in advance of misery. Read that again. Miserable in advance of misery. That's like buying fire insurance for a house that hasn't even been built and living as if it's already burned down. So what do? We get honest. We stop pretending our guesses are prophecies. We stop treating maybe like definitely. And we pull the mind back again and again to the truth of now. Let me tell you something I've come to believe. Simplicity is a superpower. If something's not happening right now in this very second, then it's not real, not yet. And until it is, you don't owe it your peace. Marcus Aurelius, who ruled an empire, said, "Today I escaped anxiety." Or, no, I discarded it, because it was within me, in my own perceptions, not outside. Anxiety, folks, isn't a weather pattern. It's a habit. It's a reflex. And like any reflex, it can be unlearned. Next time you feel that surge in your chest, that dread in your belly, I want you to pause and ask yourself one simple question. Am I reacting to what is or what I'm imagining? That question alone can yank you out of the mental fog and back into your body. Here's the deal. Life will challenge you. But 9 times out of 10, it's not the fall that breaks you. It's the fear of the fall. And the fear is fiction. Seneca, Marcus, Epictetus, they weren't selling fantasies. They were reminding us that strength begins in perception. Clarity begins with cutting the nonsense. Don't let your imagination rob you of a life that's already hard enough.
Chapter 3. Seneca's Antidotes to Anxiety. Let me tell you something that's been true since the beginning of time. Life is unpredictable, and fear loves the unknown. But the Roman Stoic Seneca, he knew that fear wasn't something to just power through. It was something to understand and disarm. In his letters to his friend Lucilius, Seneca offered more than advice. He offered tools, antidotes. And these weren't just for philosophers in togas. They were for regular people like you and me, trying to sleep through the night without our thoughts chewing through us. Let's walk through some of the strongest ones. 1. Lean on what you've already survived. You ever look back at something that used to scare the hell out of you, and now it feels small? That's the first weapon against worry. Memory. Seneca told Lucilius to remember his past trials and how he made it through. That he's standing now, stronger for it. And you know what? The same goes for us. That job you thought you'd never survive losing? That relationship you thought would destroy you? That diagnosis, that move, that failure? You're here. And if you're breathing, you're undefeated. Sometimes we need to flip through the mental photo album, not just of what hurt, but of how we endured it. Seneca reminds us, most catastrophes weren't. Not really. Not when the dust settled. So the next time your stomach tightens about something uncertain, remind yourself what you've already walked through. Fear is loud, but your past is louder, if you let it speak. 2. Separate reality from mental static. Seneca said, "We are tormented either by things present, or by things to come, or by both." And you know what that tells me? Most of the time, we're not even dealing with real pain. We're just dragging 2 imaginary suitcases behind us, one marked regret, the other worry. So try this. When anxiety shows up, ask one question. Is there an actual threat in this moment? If the answer's no, then what you're feeling ain't real. It's mental static, fear without form. Look, being cautious is smart. Preparing for storms makes sense. But living inside those storms before they even happen, that's what burns us out. And the beauty of that question, is this happening now? Is that it cuts through the fog. It yanks you back from the future and plants you firmly in the present. That's where your power lives. Not in what if, but in what is. 3. Be careful who you let into your head. Here's one folks don't talk about enough. Other people's fear is contagious. You ever feel good about something until someone else dumps their doubts on you? You say, "I think I'm ready for this career change." And they say, "You sure? That sounds risky."
Suddenly your gut tightens. Not because you were wrong, but because they planted a seed of doubt. Seneca warned about this too. He told Lucilius to guard his mind against fearmongers, gossipers, dramatists, because their anxiety is like a virus. It spreads through conversations, headlines, even well-meaning concern. Now, that doesn't mean you shut everyone out, but it does mean you have to get picky about which voices you listen to. Because in the end, you're the only one who lives inside your circumstances. Nobody else knows your strength. Nobody else knows your plan. So don't hand over the steering wheel just because someone's nervous in the passenger seat. 4. Stay open to the unexpected turn. Now this one might be my favorite. Seneca said, "Even bad fortune is fickle." That means don't assume that just because you're in a storm now, it's going to rain forever. Life has this strange rhythm. Just when you think you've hit the bottom, something shifts. A door cracks open. A phone call changes everything. A setback becomes a setup for something better. But here's the catch. You gotta stay flexible, because anxiety comes from trying to lock down outcomes, trying to force certainty in a world that refuses to give it. So instead of asking, what's the worst that could happen, maybe start asking, what else could happen? Maybe that job falls through and you discover something 10 times better. Maybe that breakup hurts, but it makes space for the kind of love you thought was just a movie thing. Fortune, as Seneca said, doesn't play by our rules. But that's not always bad news. Sometimes the chaos is just a new path in disguise. Let me leave you with this. Worry will always come knocking. But you don't have to invite it in. Serve it coffee and let it redecorate the living room. Seneca's antidotes are simple. Trust your track record. Question your mind's wild stories. Filter the voices around you. And stay loose, because even storms don't last forever. Remember, anxiety feeds on prediction, but peace lives in presence. You are not your thoughts. You are the watcher behind them. And that watcher, he's strong. He's been through worse. And he's still standing.
Chapter 4. Moderation and Accepting Uncertainty. How much of your energy this week went to worrying about something that hasn't even happened yet? If you're anything like most folks, too much. But you're not alone in that. We've all got that voice inside that whispers, "What if?" And the problem is, that voice doesn't know when to shut up. But there's a gentler way, a Stoic way. And Seneca, God bless that Roman son of a gun, he knew it well. He wasn't saying to ignore risks. This ain't some just think happy thoughts nonsense. Life throws curveballs. We all know that. But Seneca's point is simple. Avoid the extremes. Don't live in denial, but don't drown in panic either. The middle way. Seneca once wrote, "Let us look carefully into the matter. You will suffer soon enough when it arrives, so look forward meanwhile to better things." Now that right there, that's Stoic gold. He's saying, yes, life might get rough. Yes, there are storms coming. But why let them steal your peace before they even arrive? There's a kind of strength in standing in the middle of uncertainty without flinching, not running from it, not overreacting to it, just watching it, feeling it, but not letting it rule you. Let me break that down with a little more good sense. A Stoic doesn't close his eyes to danger. He opens them wider. He sees the threat, nods, and gets back to chopping wood and carrying water. It's not that Stoics don't feel fear. They just don't serve it. The future is a guess, and so is fear. Here's a thought that ought to shake you loose. What if most of your suffering ain't from what's real, but from what's imagined. That's not just theory, that's everyday life. How many of us walk around weighed down, not by what's in our hands, but what might be coming? You ever lose sleep over something that never even happened? We've all been there. The deadline, the test result, the phone call. Your mind builds a horror movie, and you're the star. But 9 times out of 10, the thing turns out softer than you expected, or never comes at all. Seneca knew that. He wrote, "What's the point of dragging up sufferings that are over, of being unhappy now just because you were then?" That line hits, doesn't it? We're out here digging up graves, old mistakes, ancient regrets, and wondering why our hearts feel heavy. But what if we just stopped? What if we let the past stay buried and left the future to unfold as it must? The art of not flinching. Modern life teaches us to chase certainty like it's a prize we can win. Truth is, certainty's a myth. Nobody's got it. Not CEOs, not politicians, not gurus on YouTube selling you peace of mind for $19.99. What you can have is resilience. And that, my friend, starts with accepting that you don't need to predict everything to be okay. Seneca wasn't a gambler, but he knew this game we call life is full of wild cards. So he made his peace with not knowing. He walked forward anyway. That's not weakness, that's power. Because real peace comes not from everything being calm outside, but from learning how to stay calm inside, no matter what. The final word. Why suffer twice? Let me leave you with this thought. If life's gonna hit you, let it hit you once, not 100 times in your head beforehand. Don't rehearse your suffering. Don't write the script of your own downfall. Because when you do, you lose the very thing that makes life worth living, the present. Live now. Breathe now. Deal with the storms when they actually roll in, not when they're still over the horizon. Or as Seneca put it, you will suffer soon enough when it arrives. So look forward meanwhile to better things. And you know what? That's not just stoicism. That's sanity. The practice, the clarity, and the strength, that's just beginning. Because in a noisy world full of fear and spin, steady minds are the rarest treasure of all. And yours? Yours is getting there. Whenever you're ready, I'll help you take the next step. Conclusion. What remains when the noise fades? We spend so much of our lives fighting shadows, chasing control over what we can't touch, losing sleep over futures we can't predict. But the Stoics, those old warriors of the mind, remind us that peace is not found by taming the world, it's found by taming our response to it. Seneca, Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius, they lived through plagues, betrayal, war, and loss. Yet what they left us was not a strategy for escape. It was a path for endurance with dignity. They didn't promise we'd never feel fear or grief. They taught us not to be owned by it. And that, my friend, is freedom. True strength is silent. It's not in the loud declarations or the perfect plans. It's in those quiet moments when fear shows up and you meet it with stillness. When chaos knocks and you simply breathe. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Today I escaped anxiety," or no, I discarded it because it was within me, in my own perceptions, not outside. The battlefield is not out there, it's inside. And every day we get to choose how we meet it. So take what you've learned here. Don't just listen, live it. Use it in traffic, in hard conversations, when the future feels uncertain and your heart beats too fast. Come back to this practice, not just when life is calm, but especially when it's not, because that's when the work matters most. If this spoke to you, if something here gave you pause or helped clear some of the fog, you're in the right place. Hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't miss the next video. This channel isn't about hype. It's about sharpening the mind, steadying the spirit, and walking through life a little clearer, a little lighter, and a whole lot wiser. The Stoics lit the torch. All we have to do is carry it forward. I'll see you in the next one.